Welcome to Not Alone Leaders in Conversation, a bi-monthly podcast where we delve into the minds and experiences of academic leaders who are shaping the future of higher education. Your host is Rafael Bras, professor at Georgia Institute of Technology and editor of Elsevier's Not Alone newsletter. In each episode, he will explore the complex challenges, decisions, and opportunities facing academic institutions today. Some of the topics you can look forward to in part one of this special episode are the role of arts and humanities in research, leveraging AI for research and innovation, digital transformation in libraries, connecting scholars and learners, and student empowerment and publishing.
Welcome to a very special episode of Not Alone, Leaders in Conversation. Elsevier's 2025 Impact Conference in Chicago offered the opportunity to listen to a keynote by President Tim Killeen of the University of Illinois system. During his session, Killeen explored several crises driving global disruption and the critical role higher education institutions play in tackling this crisis. He stressed that the challenges we are experiencing, like the loss of trust in institutions, the rapidly diminishing agreement on evidence-based facts, health inequities, and economic instability are not just bad for the university sector, they are detrimental to society. Higher education holds the tools and the responsibility to meet these challenges head-on and inspire hope for future generations. If not us, then who? I am now joined by several of our esteemed EIC attendees who will be sharing their thoughts on Killeen's insightful keynote. Judy Verses is the president of Elsevier's Academic and Government Group. She's an extraordinary and experienced leader that always has wonderful ideas and things to say. Let's listen. We heard from Tim Killeen, the president of the University System of Illinois. One of the points that he addressed was the loss of trust in academia. How do you think we can regain that trust?
Yeah, no, that's a powerful question, Rafael. And first of all, Tim was amazing, and I thought his keynote was absolutely exceptional. Not only with the wisdom based upon his experience, but also the exceptional values that he has as a person and as university president. And so to me, trust at the end of the day, you have to build it from the ground up. And it's about listening to each other, being open to differences of opinion, and getting aligned on the future that you want to build together. And my core belief in terms of the erosion of trust that has taken place is a lack of alignment that we're seeing here in the United States between academic institutions and the important job they have and some of the changes coming down and how that impacts overall education and also innovation as it relates to research. So to me, to rebuild trust, you've got to have open conversations and listen and start from ground zero, focus on where you are aligned. And I passionately believe everyone is aligned on the critical importance higher education plays in our society and what it plays for individuals, but also what it plays for overall economic development and human progress.
You had a global organization. In your travels and as you listen to the various clients of Elsevier, in this issue of trust, how does the United States and other parts of the world differ?
In terms of trust in...
Do you see the same erosion of trust in other parts of the world?
In other countries? No, I've not seen that. I have not seen that.
Is there any concern that concept could spread?
I always have a healthy paranoia about everything. Even though I like to look at things with rose-colored glasses, because the U.S. is so influential, I don't believe we could kid ourselves and think that that is not going to extend outside of the U.S. And so to me, the real important thing is to engage in these really open conversations in the different countries and with the different educational systems and start to address more head on as issues come up that can lead to that erosion.
In some ways, they're starting from different points, so that makes it differentiated. Let's talk Europe, where all universities are effectively public universities. They're completely free access.
Affordability is very different.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And which is not true in the United States. They're also very limited. Like a country like Italy or England, when you think of it, the number of institutions per capita is probably a lot smaller than in the United States, where there's a proliferation of institutions. So that difference, do you think that plays into this concept of why the public in the United States stops trusting us being, since I'm from academia, but it doesn't translate, let's say, in Europe, because in many ways the relationship already has been different?
And I've never even thought about that, Raphael. So that's a really interesting question. And just thinking about it for the first time, my instinct would be, and it could be completely wrong, is because the size of these countries are so much smaller, the number of academic institutions is way less, and the access to education is different. My instinct is those discussions are ongoing. Versus United States, there's so many institutions, there's public and private, and trying to get aligned collectively, it would be a lot harder.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
It is definitely difficult. Oh, so we've been talking about regaining trust and changes that may occur, and one of the things that Killeen mentioned, and I believe you alluded to, it takes two to tango. In other words, academic institutions need to realign and realize that mistakes have been made also. So with that in mind, could you or do you have a vision of how academic institutions in the United States will look, and in the rest of the world, 15 years from now?
Oh my God. Can you hand me a crystal ball? I would love that. I wish I had a crystal ball here, Raphael. I struggle to believe that the role of higher education will lessen. If anything, I believe it needs to increase even more. I passionately believe that the best way to have a strong economy is to educate our youth. And I've always been a passionate believer that higher education should be open to all. And so, I would love to see the access in the U.S. change and be much more similar to what you see in Europe, because it has tremendous benefit to individuals, to families, to society. And again, if you think about economic development, higher education, that's the source of innovation for the future.
Yeah. I personally, I don't have a crystal ball either. But I do think there's going to be some significant realignment in the United States between the publics and the privates, for example.
Mm-hmm. What does your crystal ball tell you?
Well, I do believe at this moment in time, when you look, the privates, the very powerful, what I would call the flagship universities of the world in many ways, are under attack. And they're going to come out bruised, very bruised. And hence, under that situation, a lot of other institutions will rise relative to them, particularly the publics. So I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but that's sort of what is in my mind that may happen. But
But interestingly, Raphael, to me, when there's times of adversity, that is usually a rallying point for institutions and people to come together in a different way. So my optimistic self is, okay, this is an inflection point and a catalyst to help build an even better future. But the key thing is going to be bringing these disparate voices and very separate public and private, bring them more tightly together and reimagine the future. I mean, to me, there's always continual power in reimagining the future. I mean, at Elsevier, we do that all the time. That's part of having, and I love Tim's word on thrivability versus sustainability. They are very, very different. Matter of fact, I wrote that down because we should be focused not on sustainability, but how do we thrive and take it to the next level. And I'm really hoping that this is a critical inflection point for us to do that.
I think your point is a very good one. I hope, and I just sort of repeating what you said, if I understood it correctly, there's a need for all these varied institutions to come together to start working together. I haven't seen that. In fact, at this moment, I see them sort of spreading apart.
Aligning, yeah.
Not aligning.
I mean, not misaligned. Yeah, going in separate camps.
Yes. But I think you're absolutely correct. And hopefully they'll realize it, that they need to get together and speak with a single voice at some point.
It will take courage.
It will
definitely take courage to do that. Yeah.
That's a perfect lead into what I wanted to ask you next, which is Team Killeen spoke of courage, of moral courage. In the latest issue of Not Alone, Dawn Freshwater speaks about moral courage in academic leadership. What is that? What is that moral courage? How do leaders, you as a leader, how do leaders gain that courage, which many have not shown so far?
To me, it's so much about being true to your values. And again, that was one of the many things that impressed me with Tim, and not only his keynote that he had yesterday, but also in talking with him. And it's interesting, I always reflect back when I was growing up, my father always said to me, make sure you like and respect the person looking back at you in the mirror. And I think we all need to continually keep that top of mind. And my core belief has always been you should never sacrifice your morals and values, because if you do, that is a really slippery slope. And I think the challenge right now, and I never like to say the word challenge, I always like to say opportunity. It's a bit of a slippery slope in some ways, and institutions are wanting to go under the radar a little bit to not be put in the bullseye. But my hope would be that moral courage comes out, because not saying anything when you see something wrong is basically aligning and saying it's okay. And candidly, it's not okay. Yeah.
A lot of this revolves around impact. In fact, we are in the Elsevier's Impact Conference. What is impact?
Oh, yeah, that's
how do we measure it?
Yeah. To me, the way impact is always measured is through actual outcomes. Tangible things you can see that happened as a result of what you personally did, what products did, et cetera. The reason we named it Elsevier Impact Conference was all about the impact that our customers have. And I go back to the core of our research world, which are researchers. That's where the true impact comes from. It's their discoveries and innovation that drive progress in society. And that's why higher education plays such a critical role, because without enabling those researchers, we would not even be where we are today with the incredible innovations that make our life easier, or even can make our life more complex in a bit when you look at generative AI with the pluses and minuses associated with it.
Let me switch gears a little bit.
You're switching on me. Oh, no.
I think it would be an appropriate way to sort of end this conversation, but let's talk a little bit about your leadership. You're extraordinarily successful. You preside over a very large organization. Your experience is incredible. You've been in several places. What would you say if you wanted to distill the characteristics that make you a successful leader? What would they be?
Yeah, leadership is all about people. It's not about you. And I was raised, God, years ago when I was in telecom, in the whole concept of servant leadership. And matter of fact, it was instilled in terms of, you look at a typical corporate structure, it's a pyramid. All institutions, a pyramid structure. And the important part of leadership, you got to turn that pyramid upside down, because literally the most important people in any organization are the people who are touching the customer. And servant leadership is all about being incredibly connected to the people in your organization. And you don't lead through, kind of an iron fist. You lead through influence, you lead through motivation and listening. And so that's been my focus as a leader. It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about doing the right thing for the people you have the privilege to serve. And my core belief has always been, if you do that, they will do the right thing for customers. And so it all works. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Judy, for spending the time with me.
Thank you, Raphael. I always enjoy time with you.
I managed to speak with Cyril Oberlander, the library dean at Poly Humboldt. Libraries are traditionally the repositories of content, of knowledge in some fashion. But in this world of quick changes, where the traditional book is no longer necessarily the place to go, how do you see the libraries evolving in the future?
That's a great question. I think I'll start by saying libraries have always been a learning environment, and its focus, while books were one of the methods of conveying information for learning, and journals were the second, libraries have always been learning environments. And so when we think about the way information has been digitized and now it's being adapted to new forms and new uses, what we really are transforming to be is the kind of laboratory that people work with information in new ways. But primarily, libraries are about connecting people and ideas. So when we encourage the faculty a project, for example, a digital project, what we're doing is exploring how to take our print information or how to take our digital information and make it a new environment for the learner, for the researcher. And so it's not necessarily that books and journals have gone away or they have less value in libraries. It's just one of the many ways libraries interact with the community at large. And learning is now getting to be more exciting and creative than it's ever been. When I have been in libraries through the transition of Google and Wikipedia, it was really clear that print reference, the most expensive books in the library, were no longer used by learners, even though they were the closest to the learners right next to the computer lab. And that isn't a library problem, that's a scholar-learner problem. When we disconnect the scholarship to the learner, we have to find new ways to connect them. Roy Rosenzweig years ago said, "Can history be open source?" And his call to action for historians is, you need to be where the learners are. You need to be in Wikipedia. You need to engage your learners in a new way. And what we've found finding with digital humanities, with e-science, with digital library publishing, is we're finding new ways to explore the connection between the scholar and the learner. And we're learning together. We're becoming more co-creative with our students. So empowering students with co-creating, with authoring, is one of the amazing opportunities that we as libraries have now. We publish 600 authored works a year. And one of my goals is every student publish before they graduate. And they care less about publishing in a digital form. When it's in a book, a published book or a published journal that's in print, they are over the moon happy to show their parents, families, and friends that they are transformed, and we see it in them.
But isn't that really symbolic? Because in a way, the print is not used very often these days.
No, but if you look at print on demand, there are more books published today than ever, even though there's less reading of the books. So there's something about our interest, our talent to create. We want to produce, we want to be authors. And so what's happening now is, rather than have students write an assignment that only the faculty member reads and is graded and then recycled, we are asking of our students to produce and share knowledge with the world, whether it's through digital commons, or it's through print on demand with Amazon, or it's a digital exhibit or a digital project. And by doing that, we're expanding where the library is. No longer are the materials just in the library. They're on our shelf, they're out in the digital world, and they're in print on demand.
In a world of AI, where there is at least the promise of interpretation of content, is the content really the valuable piece any longer? Or is it, are we going to get to a point where the valuable entity is that interpretation, that putting together of content from anywhere and everywhere?
That's a very good question, because if we're co-authoring or as Ethan Mullock says, co-intelligence with AI, we are a hybrid. We are our own and our co-intelligent thought. The sources of the materials are always important. If it's enough to have the summary, the AI summary or the AI-generated executive report, that's fantastic. But without the citable sources, we lose the ability to verify that information. And so the quality of information still matters, and that's determined by citation. And so it's important to know where we get the information. And where AI summarizes that information is incredibly important, as some, I think, lawyers found out when they couldn't cite back to the original source because it was fabricated.
But it could, hopefully they'll get better. And if you're operating on more curated content, then the source will be more believable, right?
Exactly.
And
why we're creating something called Ask Alex Humboldt, it's a custom agent-based AI, is because we want our digital commons PDF articles all to be the source of the document. The language model is the inference, but it's the source that matters. And if we can trace back to it, we're empowering our learners our researchers with valid, verifiable information. And that's important. It's thankfully still important.
It is very important, but not that long ago, and I'm sure you recall this, when Wikipedia began, everybody was up in arms, and certainly in the library circuits, as saying, you cannot possibly trust this. This is a lot of fake news. And students are getting wrong information, and they are unable to discern what is true or not. Yet, that conversation doesn't occur any longer.
No, there was a nice research that was done to compare it with Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was found that the errors were very comparable, in fact, fewer in Wikipedia. And that, I think, answers the how do we connect people and ideas? Wikipedia did it through a crowdsourcing. And higher ed needs to connect with the crowd in new ways. And that is the library in a nutshell, is that you're essentially finding ways to connect with the community in ways that create not only the verifiable information, but also a platform for creating new information. Because whether it's as a library publisher like we are, or it is a digital humanities project, or it's a citizen science project, we have an opportunity to really create new research and learning that engages the community. And that, in fact, I think is one of the roles of a library.
One of the themes that President Killeen in his keynote talk on this impact conference, Elsevier Impact Conference, dealt with the issue of discerning truth. It is becoming increasingly difficult to discern what is true or not, and even more difficult to base decision on true facts. What is a true fact? How you see that? How can we help on that? It is, I believe, a fundamental problem that we're having.
There are many ways to unpack that, and I want to start with that movie, You Can't Handle the Truth. I have to do that one. Truth might be relative to folks, but what I really appreciate about libraries is librarians and library staff and student employees, they do a lot to try to connect people to verifiable information that's and develop the skills to find it, because that's really important. That's that information literacy, evaluate information, understand it. And what I'm finding is that maybe we have to reframe the question. What is eroding trust? And is it eroding the trust or confidence in institutions? Or is it something that is so ubiquitous that we don't even understand how our information consumption habits have significantly changed? We used to read newspapers more. We used to read books more. We used to watch news that wasn't so sensational. We aren't fed things that have been adapted to us to keep us engaged. If I were a pessimistic person, I'd say in many ways, we are addicted to our feeds. I think how we need to understand truth is, where can we connect people again, where they have shared understandings and shared information? Libraries are the ideal place if we reach out to them. Because here's the challenge. We're competing with social platforms that dominate the minds of so many people. And in order to compete with that, we have to understand, what are they so attracted to want to spend hours on a feed? And why isn't our information as attractive? And there lies maybe one of the truths, is that academics have spoken to themselves very often. We write for ourselves. We publish behind paywalls. Increasingly, we need to reach out. We need to find ways to communicate and engage our communities in ways that are diverse enough to engage everyone.
Well, I think I could not find a better way of ending this interview than by quoting you that learning should be an inspiring experience. Thank you so much, Cyril, for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
The Not Alone podcast is a collaboration between Elsevier and Professor Raphael Brass. We bring unfiltered perspectives on global issues by research and academic leaders. Experts from MIT, Harvard, UCLA, and beyond bring their conviction and compassion to a wide range of topics. Follow our channel for fresh content. And now, back to the show.
I had the pleasure of sitting down with Catherine Stollar Peters, Director of Research Data Strategy at the State University of New York. In the talk of the keynoter today, Tim Killeen, he brought up the issue of hope. Mm-hmm. How that, and I think he's correct, we'll be here, we'll survive, we have to keep going. How do you articulate that hope to the researchers at SUNY? How do you keep them going?
That's absolutely a great question. In the keynote today, I really loved the presentation of that image. So one thing that I found from the presentation, it was a hand drawing of kind of scribed notes, an artistic rendering of a conversation. A pretty scientific conversation related to sustainability. And what I loved about that image is it really demonstrates the role of arts and humanities along with sciences in advancing research and human progress. So with that one image, an artist was really able to distill the feeling and energy in a crowd in that one drawing. So that's the first takeaway I had, just how important that humanities is at a time where sometimes in research we really value scientific research quite a bit. Many times there's more funding related to that. So I just loved that use of artistic expertise demonstrated. But secondly, I think that the role of hope is vitally important right now. I think that we are all, I'm specifically kind of thinking about it as an American, but I think all Americans really want the world to be better. There just might be some differences in how we're approaching that betterness. And I know that from my approach, evidence-based reasoning is one of the most important goals or tools to how we can make the world better. And at SUNY System, when we're thinking about progress and hope and positivity, it's our unique role as a state system where we run, we have 64 campuses. We run from community colleges all the way up to R1 research institutions and medical schools. And it's that collaboration that allows us to provide hope for students in terms of access to 2-year degrees or certificate programs. It allows our researchers access to high-quality students who, as they're completing very complicated research in areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and that hope really, I think, propels us from the students to the faculty and staff and researchers to really make sure that collaboratively we can build a better world and we can use evidence to do that.
Yeah, another theme that was weaved throughout the morning was the whole issue of impact. It's not only hope, but whatever you do must have impact. Universities cannot live in isolation. How do you measure that impact? What is impact for you?
That's the question of the day. We're absolutely combining components of assessment and impact so that we can demonstrate value to our funders The funders can be federal funders, they can be sponsored program funders, they can also be students who come into our university. They're funding this as well by paying for their college degrees. For me, how do I assess impact? We'd like to make sure that we determine the investments we make in research based on what our faculty are excited about and experienced with, and they are the root of innovation as researchers at SUNY. So in our department, in our office, the Senior Vice Chancellor of Research built the STRIVE task forces. These are strategic research investments task forces, and they were built from a bottom-up approach. So we gathered together a couple of hundred researchers in a variety of strategic areas, including artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology. We have a climate task force we're working on, and microelectronics packaging. So these were very, very crucial in determining our strategy at the system level, and it really bubbled up from the researchers. So in order to determine impact, the first thing we have to ask is, what are we doing? And are we aligning it with strategic areas across the system? If there's something that we're not necessarily good at, if there's only one researcher at SUNY who might be doing something, that's less effective for us as a system to invest our strategic assets or our ability to liaise with the state in order to find funding in those strategic areas. So in terms of impacts, first of all, we have to ask, what do we do well? How can we do it better? And then we can provide metrics for determining what that impact is. So some of it could be how many startups come from areas that we fund in these strategic priorities. It could be related to venture capital programs that exist in some of our universities. Upstate has a venture capital program, so they have a direct impact to catalyzing future businesses and kind of transcending the valley of death is what we hear about a lot in terms of future innovation. We can look at impact in terms of patents. We can look at impact in terms of other research outputs. But really, for us, making sure that we're making a difference to people who are experiencing the human condition, either in terms of people who need to progress through higher education to get a better job. For us, impact relates to curing incurable or previously incurable diseases. It can be related to using AI for the public good, and all of those really cycle together into how we define impact.
The pace of change in
Yes.
science and technology
Yeah.
is breathtaking. So the big issue is, how do we keep pace with it as institutions? And one example is AI. How do you use it? How do researchers will benefit from AI? And I say benefit purposely.
Yes, absolutely. What I like about the possibility of AI is that it's not just the generative AI tools that people use casually or that might be built into the Snapchat or apps that they're using, but it's a fundamental change in reducing manual processes by training models with active data or reliable data that can be used for operational efficiencies, that can help us to leverage those for insights. We're absolutely thinking about how we can aggregate our data in a way through the pure community that we're building at SUNY. For us, we're bringing together information about publications, our research grants, and then our active faculty, and presenting that in terms of providing expertise in research at SUNY through the peer community portal. So for us, doing the work with data first allows us to then extract that or to use any other AI-enabled opportunities so that we aren't dealing with lagging indicators, but really leading indicators and what the future holds in terms of research, innovation, and human potential. So we are really hoping to not have a reactive approach to AI, but really integrate it in the work we're doing and build a great, reliable, safe way to use data so that we can harness it for public good and social good across New York State and beyond.
For the sake of the audience, the Pure platform is an Elsevier product.
Yes, yeah.
That is used to collect information and put together information on researchers and their collaborative activities, etc., and hence allows you to really look where the strengths are, for example. That's one of the many things it can.
It really is, and it's allowing us to brand the incredible research output and the incredible work that SUNY researchers are completing, so that we can build together, show the strengths of the SUNY system, show what our expertise is, and let the world know what we already know in New York, I think, and within SUNY about the amazing work that we do. But allowing this public portal, bringing together disparate data sources and wrapping it around the lens of who actively is at SUNY. We constantly are asked, what expertise we have in particular areas. It could be quantum computing, it could be mRNA vaccines, and it can be a little difficult if we're just looking at publications alone and affiliation to know who is still at SUNY. And Pure really takes the hard work out of that and makes it really actionable for both administrators and the public. And researchers to find themselves, industry to find researchers, and for us to highlight the incredible work we do.
Very good. Any final words?
No, I think these are the right questions. It's great to hear you ask them and to hear you think about where we're going in the future. And I just want to circle back to that concept of hope and positivity. I really think that there's a lot of room for that in the world, and I think that as people, we really do want to make a difference, and the objective of improving the lives of people, I think, is the same, for all of us, in America. And I'm hoping that together, as we grow, we can make sure that we kind of build on everybody's experiences to make it better for all of us. So that's my hope for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Not Alone, Leaders in Conversation. We hope this discussion today sparked new ideas and left you with plenty to think about as you continue to lead in your own institution. If you found this conversation interesting, insightful, or thought-provoking, please share this episode with your colleagues, peers, and friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Keep listening for part 2 of this special episode.